Welcome everybody. Thank you for being here today. Don't forget this is being recorded, but I want to thank a couple of people. I want to thank the International Association of Financial Engineers, who advertised this event to all of their members, and we are entitled to use their branding. I also want to thank Amy Lamb, who is our business manager at the UIUC MSFE program, and Matt Murphy at the Illinois MSFE, who is the coordinator of financial technology. And both of those are here to help with the organization of this event. Our objective is to inform students about financial engineering programs around the country and some of the necessary but sufficient ingredients of becoming a quant, a quantitative financial analyst. And just so the panel realizes, the audience that they will be addressing includes current students, recently graduated students, students from other universities, not just Illinois, and it also includes some people who are already in the workforce, but maybe planning to go back to get degrees to upgrade their skills. And in the spirit of how I became a quant, we've assembled an expert panel, and I'm going to ask them to self-introduce themselves in a few moments. But just so you know, the construction of the panel has representatives from big firms and small firms, newish graduates and more mature graduates. All of them are quants. And interestingly, most of them are immigrants, like a lot of you who are interested in this area are also immigrants. To introduce myself, I'm Morton Lane. I'm the director of the master's program in financial engineering at Illinois. I'm also a quant. I have taught at the London Business School and Illinois. I've traded cash instruments and managed a brokerage company in derivative instruments, and I consult privately in the area of insurance securitization. Today's ground rules, we are going to have you all on mute, except the panelist, and I would ask you to send your questions via the chat, which Matt and Amy will be monitoring. After 45 or 50 minutes, we're going to break from the general session and devolve into private break rooms where you can interact one-on-one with the panelists who are then available. And then we will reconvene in the main room and if they answer any final questions and wind up the proceedings. Hope you all enjoy this. So let's just dive right in, and I'm going to ask Zishan Kai to start the introductions. Please tell us a little bit about yourself, Zishan.
Hi guys, and thank you for inviting me, Dr. Lane. My name is Ishan. I am a graduate of the MSFE program in 2018, end of 2018. So I started working in just early 2019. So it's only been 2 years. So I'm one of the fresher graduates from the program. So I work at a company called Social Market Analytics. So we're a Chicago-based fintech startup. So we are coming up to 9 years old. We're still calling ourselves a startup. So I'll be one of the panelists that, kind of represent the people who chose a startup, kind of a very small agile team compared to the bigger companies. So my background, my undergrad background is in actuarial science, and it's also from U of I, and I sticked around for the MSA program. I found it really helpful as well. So, and that's actually how I landed the job. We can go into that later as well. But our main business currently is in the alternative data space. Until last year. Until last year, we're always in the alternative data space. So we're looking at different big data, data sources, the social media platform like Reddit, Twitter, StockTwist. We compile those the fire hose messages, and we put our own algo on it to produce data feeds to hedge funds clients. And last year we launched the a traditional data set, which is the Edgar machine readable filings product with S&P Global. So that's a brand new product on the traditional data sets with Edgar filings and 10Ks and 10Qs, which is also part of the resource we use to have a very good successful practicum actually just this past semester. So that's some of the background on the company and on me as well. So happy to be here. Have any questions? Happy to answer them.
Z, the one bit you left out of your quick introduction is that you are a mean pool player. People should not approach the table with you unless they're experienced, right?
Yeah, if you guys are on campus or have been on campus, the Atlanta Union was my little comfort spot. I spent a lot of my time there, maybe a little bit too much. And I ran the club there for a while and also worked there. So I know the people in the union very well. And if you've been there, that was my playground.
Thank you. Ivana, could you introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the invitation, Morten. My name is Ivana Donevska, and I am the head of data and analytics for USAA's anti-money laundering department. So I serve in a chief data and analytics officer capacity for the department. Prior to USAA, I worked at Bank of Montreal, or BMO. I was heading up the R&D and Quant analytics initiatives for anti-money laundering again. I have previous experience in healthcare, where I also helped stand up a data analytics team for a company called, at the time, Accretive Health. Now it's called R1. I had a brief quant or algo trading experience at Simplex, but we're a bunch of Purdue hires that were short-lived at the company. They were struggling at the time. I got my master's from Purdue Fort Wayne, and I graduated in 2011. And then I did my undergraduate, so I did my master's in applied computer science, and then I did my undergraduate at the University of Saints Cyril and Methodius in Skopje, Macedonia. And I graduated in electrical engineering. That's my major, and my minor is computer engineering and informatics. Have done some quant work and publications that I'm happy to talk about later as we continue the discussion.
Yeah, why don't you just mention those now, Ivana? I was always impressed that you did those when you were really fresh out of school, and they were on what I thought was a fairly obscure subject. What did you write about? What were the titles?
So I was really passionate about algorithmic search and semantic Bayesian networks. I spent a lot of time trying to connect semantics between just different types of concepts, but my master's thesis and two of my publications are around a similarity model that can technically be applied and has been applied over the last 10 years since I really worked on the topic in search engines, recommender systems, where, whether it's Instagram, right, social networks, we're really trying to find similarities between concepts or behaviors, words that are not connected by text, but just have similarities or semantic similarities or dissimilarities. So that's really what I published, and it's what kind of accelerated my career in the last 10 years.
Thank you. Good. Michela.
Hello. I am Michele Gambera. My current title is co-head of strategic asset allocation modeling with UBS Asset Management. One thing that I can tell you that will be important for your career is that the length of your title is inversely proportional to the power you have in the company. So I got my undergraduate degree in economics at the University of Trento in Italy, and then went to Penn State and got a PhD in economics, worked a couple of years at the Chicago Fed as economist, and then something that perhaps other people in this group might have had to deal with is that there was no interest from management to sponsor me for a green card. And therefore, I basically understood that the H-1B visa can be extended only up to 6 years, and then I should have left the US, and I didn't want to leave unless I wanted to leave. So I wanted to keep this option open. And so I looked around and I got a job at Morningstar. Morningstar did a lot of interesting work there, particularly in asset allocation, and also the star rating for the mutual funds that you can see with Morningstar. I am one of the 2 people who authored the methodology in 2000. There was a previous methodology, but we had to replace it because it was not as robust. And then after about 10 years at Morningstar, doing all sorts of errands, I mean, everything legal, let me point that out. I got an opportunity with UBS, and so the job was basically to clean up all the existing models in the asset allocation team, and then gradually develop new models. And so actually I have a good team. We've done interesting work, pretty happy and proud of our output actually. So I've been there for, it will be 11 years in March. So it's been a while. I am not one of those people who jumps from job to job very frequently. I guess there are pros and cons on all these things. I also have the privilege to be one of the instructors in the Master in Financial Engineering. I teach asset allocation, which is the thing that I've been working on for about 20 years. So I guess if you take my class, you will hear it a bit from the horse's mouth in terms of people who have been working to develop asset allocation techniques and strategies. Asset allocations means how much money in a portfolio to assign to US stocks rather than European high yield or emerging market property or things like that. So just breaking out the portfolio in the different asset classes that you have access to. That's about it, right?
Thank you, Michela. We'll come back on some of those issues. I'd like to dive in a little deeper, but just to round out the panel, Alex, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me here today. My name is Alex Quant, and I've been a senior quant with the risk department of Geneva Trading for about like a year now. So that's quite interesting because I started during the time when there was like the Corona lockdown, and it's been very interesting because I've not been able to like meet too many of my new colleagues. And before that, I was working for an asset management company here in Chicago called Hull Tactical. And there was a research quant, and we were running and market timing strategy. So what we were trying to do there was time the S&P 500. So that involved like daily trading, and we deployed the strategy in an ETF. So we were kind of like managing outside people money, and now the work that I'm doing is proprietary trading. My educational background. So like Stephen, I went for the Master's in Financial Engineering at the University of Illinois. I graduated there in 2015. And before that, I got an undergrad degree in business with majors in finance and accounting.
And where did you get that undergraduate degree?
That was in Vienna.
In Vienna.
Austria.
You are Austrian.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. I'd just like to go back through that, the panel again, not necessarily in that order, but one of the things that intrigues people who are soon to graduate is, how do you get that first job? What was it that allowed you to get the first job? And I realize the definition of the first job may be different, but do you have any recollections? Or, for instance, Michaela, your first job in a sense was the one you got at Morningstar.
Well, no, the first job was the Federal Reserve. And so it was just out of school, but that's kind of a weird situation because it is the job market for economics PhDs is very regimented. So yes, from that point of view, you are correct, Morten. The real job that I had to look for in the normal way was at Morningstar. And what happened is that I had seen a presentation by the CEO of Morningstar, Don Phillips, and I thought that he was a very interesting person. It turns out that he's an exceptional person. And I thought, I wouldn't mind working for this guy. And then one day at a party, I met an Austrian lady, actually, who was working at Morningstar and said that they had openings for propeller heads. And so that's how I applied.
Okay, so there's two things that you mentioned there, which I think are really key. One is serendipity, which none of us can plan for. But the other one is you identified somebody that you thought you would like to work for. And you tried then to get opportunities to do that. Is that the same as it was for you, Ivana and Alex? What did you go through when you were trying to get that first job? Did you send out 1,000 resumes, or how did it go?
I was pretty. Go ahead, Alex.
No, you go ahead.
Ladies first. Ladies first.
Thank you. I was pretty ambitious in my job search. I knew exactly what I wanted, where I wanted to move. So I identified, the cities in Europe or in America that I'd like to work in, and the types of companies. Really, what propelled my kind of career search at the time was the job fairs at Purdue. I think they're very beneficial. They're just they're a great platform for recent graduates or soon to be graduates to get their resume out, but also make that first impression face to face in a lot of companies at once. And that's actually how I got my first job in trading. To be honest, at the time, I really was passionate about just being a tech geek. And the high frequency trading companies had booths at the West Lafayette campus. So I felt like that would be something new and exciting for me to try. I knew I loved Chicago from just past visits as a tourist. So I decided to take a leap, and it was a fun ride.
When you went to that job fair, I don't know if people were using the term financial engineer at that time. They may have been using quant. Did they know you? Were they looking for quants, or did they know what they wanted?
I don't think so, Morten. I think like 11 years ago, the quant term was used purely for research, at least in the job applications or the profiles. I think, at least for the students, for us at the time, it wasn't very clear that, there could be more applicable opportunities for people that are students that are very skilled in math and really quant type of jobs. So absolutely, I think the market has evolved a lot. The technology has evolved since I graduated, even though it's, I'm going to say only 10 years. But I feel like it was a different century almost, just like a day and night kind of situation.
Sure. Alex, you were going to say?
Yeah, so I found my first job over LinkedIn. I found my first job over LinkedIn. Like, I knew kind of what industry I wanted to go into. It was the trading and investment management industry for sure. And so at the time, like the company that I applied for actually had a high frequency market making business too. And yeah, like I just applied over LinkedIn, and it was funny. Like the interview process went so fast. I think I hit the apply button, then the next day I got a call from the HR department if I don't want to speak to one of the quants there. So I had a phone screen, and from there to a group interview, which is also a very interesting experience to have. And after that, yeah, I got a job offer. And
so when you say the HR department, how many people were in the HR department? How many people were in Hull Trading at that time?
there were probably 60 to 70 people there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is some jumping ahead, and I know a little bit about the history of Hull Trading. It was started by somebody who originally wrote software that subsequent on options trading that Goldman Sachs bought, and he made a small fortune from that sale to Goldman Sachs. That's correct, isn't it? And subsequently, he's done various things, and you were involved in the ETF
Correct.
part of what he was doing there.
Yeah.
That's a modestly small, modestly sized group. Did you find it easy to integrate into that sort of size group?
I actually loved that it was so small, and the division that I ended up working for was even smaller than that. So the whole company was like 70 people. But then the subgroup, which was working on the longer term strategy and investment management, really was only maybe like 8 people at that time.
So you, as one of 8, had a big contribution to make in that sort of proportionate sense.
Yeah, and I got to work on so many like different parts of the business. Okay. On one hand, I was preparing maybe like investment materials, and then I was working on the research. It was a very like small team, so I had the luck of having some very good mentors that I could like work like very closely with. And for me, I think the greatest part of working in such a small team was being able to just take a lot of responsibility very fast.
Now, thank you. Z, you also went to a small firm. Tell us about how you got that and how you find it with a small group.
Well, I'm always a good story to tell for the MSFE program, Dr. Lane. I actually landed. This is my first job. Right, like I mentioned, this is my first job. So I've only been here for 2 years, so I got this job opportunity through the program, through the Illinois MSFE program. So for those of you unfamiliar, we have a basically a sponsored practicum for each of the, I want to say each of the semesters of the program. So basically, you can sign on to this this practicum group. It could be of various different topics. The one I did specifically was on cryptocurrency because it was the hottest thing back then in 2017. And you get to work with the different sponsors, including small ones and big ones. I think a couple of ones that we have in the past would include like CME, Morgan Stanley, and Social Market Analytics. My current employer was also one of those sponsors, and that was what I worked on. And our team did a really good job over the span of a semester to complete the project, and the company was happy with it. And there was a summer internship opportunity back then, and I took it. I am actually the opposite of Ivana, which I actually kind of envy, who knows exactly what you want to do when you're getting out of school. I did not really have a clear idea of what exactly I want to do. I know I want to be in the quant business. I want to be in the data business, but I'm pretty open to options. And after the summer at SMA, basically what I found is it's a really small team. Alex, you said, I think you mentioned, a couple dozen people is a small team. SMA had less than 10 employees, and that's an even smaller team. Structure-wise, it's probably not as mature as a big company, but the benefit of a small company is that you're super agile. Your response time is super low. You can complete the project in a span of a couple of weeks compared to where the big company could take a couple months. So after a summer, I found out that this is a really good fit for me because I like different challenges every day, different projects to work on every day. So usually my daily life is I'm always juggling 5 to 10, maybe even more clients or projects at the same time because you're such a small team. You have to take so many different responsibilities. but I really enjoyed it. So after the internship, there was a return offer from the company, and I was super happy to accept it, and which makes my, which made my last semester kind of relaxed compared to my, other colleagues as well. So it was like I said, it was always a good story to tell because I actually got the job from the programs, and I really appreciate it. And
So
yeah.
You did it on cryptocurrency 4 years ago. Is SMA still involved with cryptocurrency?
Yes, actually, you can't really back away from crypto anymore in the recent days, and we've been tracking it since 2017, and it's been a growing product, and we do see a lot more people coming in, being able to buy this product or build models on this product. So there's a lot of research ongoing and done on the cryptocurrency front as well, and it's been successful. So that's still being tracked, and
but it's not your main product at the moment.
Nope, not the main product, not the one that's getting the most attention. The main thing that we getting talked about 80% of the time now is the machine readable filings product, which is in partnership with the S&P Global Market Intelligence. So what we're doing is basically taking in all the Edgar filings, 10Ks, 10Qs, annual reports, international plus North America. So we're turning that into a machine readable, cleaned up JSON data stream that we can provide to asset management or hedge fund clients. And on top of it, we're also applying our 10-year worth of NLP that's built in-house. So it's a really unique product on the street right now, and it's getting a lot of attention. So that's where most of the resources being spent on right now.
When it comes to NLP, I don't think you had any courses on that when you were at Illinois. How'd you learn it?
Well, it's a good question. I think there actually was a course back then when I was in. There was an elective on natural language processing back then. I'm not sure if it's still there anymore, but a good resource is always, for me, a good resource is always just, pretty sure you guys know Coursera or all those online platforms that offers great courses, or some, just some online lectures. I think MIT or Stanford post their lecture, recorded lectures on YouTube as well. So that's always a good resource. And it's, for me, it's really as a learn as I go kind of thing, because my NLP background was minimal, but as I worked more with the company and learned more, and like it just kind of accumulated over time.
Thank you. That business of you get a job and you find out that they're doing something that you didn't learn about in school means that any financial engineer, and I think a couple of you have already alluded to this, any financial engineer has to be prepared to continue to learn after graduation about what's going on. Do Alex or Ivana or Michaela, do you have any similar stories about having to learn something that was different?
So it was hilarious when my manager at Morningstar told me to sign up for the CFA program, because he, like me, was he's still alive. He's an economist, and he figured that I needed to get a bit of a refresher on a lot of things that I might have learned in bits and pieces, but I never learned formally. And so I signed up for the CFA program, and a number of people asked me why in the world I would sign up for the CFA program when I already have a doctorate. And the interesting thing that you learn when you get a doctorate is that you don't know a damn thing. So it's rather important to be modest and humble and understand that unless you learn in every opportunity, it's not good. And also, if you are in a job where you don't have learning opportunities, you may probably want to move along.
Oh, that's a good point. Ivana, Alex, neither? No?
I think I don't think one job has really had all the skills that I learned in school. It was really I think the skills that I learned in school, especially being an engineer, that helped me make ends meet at the beginning of a new job were problem solving, Googling. You have to know how to Google. You have to know how to find the right books. And um, the at the beginning, it was really knowing how to solve problems through coding. And as I get more senior in my job roles, it's really making the most out of context and communications to get your projects across. I want to say the content of the project is as valuable as your marketing for the project to make sure that that goes well. So absolutely, school is very helpful, and um, picking courses that are targeting future opportunities is a great way to open a door to a career that you can further, depending on how much effort you put into it. So that's what I would just say. The skills learned at school are a great way to open yourself to a door where you want to start. And then the rest is up to you and how you apply school knowledge versus continuous education in your own career development.
I wanted to ask you a little bit more about your background, but I'm noticing that the chat room is not harvesting any questions. So I do invite all of the people who are attending to send in a question if you want to have us put it to the panelists. But while we're on you, Ivana, we got to know you when you were at BMO Harris, and you were part of a practicum project that we did there. That was the time when really data science or data analytics was really just taking off, and yours was a specific application in the somewhat narrow area of anti-money laundering. But you must have had to do a little bit of post-school learning in the area of data analytics. How did you do that?
I think most of my, I want to say self-study was done through those papers I published after I graduated. The master's thesis was my foundation. I was really good at C and C++ coding from a computer science perspective. I think my education was well-rounded, that I could understand computers end to end, from hardware to software and all the layers in between. And then just really working on furthering that knowledge in the area that I was interested in at the time. So semantic computing. As I got into financial services, whether it was through various certifications for data science at the time. So at BMO, I had to learn a little more on Python-based analytics, a little more about Python-based analytics that really helped me lead, even when I was doing little proof of concepts with whether that was some of the big tech companies for the company at the time, or if we were developing proprietary software that was new at the time. I think I was at the right time in the right place with the right sponsors, and had tools that could help me learn quickly. So that really helped me get ahead in my career.
So you're the very person to ask this question from Jeff Nigan, which is, how relevant is SQL in the field versus Python and QKDB?
So SQL is definitely relevant because SQL can get you through any job. It's just something basic to know on how to even find out or get to know your data. Python is so being a C developer and a C coder. I always found Python a little annoying because it would do everything I had to code for a day. Python would just have a function, and this is me 10 years ago versus 5 years ago, right? Python is a great analytics tool. I've been reading articles that it might go away. I also, in full transparency, don't code anymore. I've a team of 20 that code in the department right now. So I know they like Python. I know we use it for modeling. We use it for a lot of the data science stuff, but sometimes even different coding languages or platforms are proven to provide good results. So I'm probably gonna ask Alex, Michela, and Zishan on Python. Maybe they can, if they're working with Python hands-on, they probably know a little more.
I am with you, Ivana. Unfortunately, being management means that you're sitting in meetings and writing documentation, and then going to meetings to present the documentation, and running tests and doing all sorts of things that are not coding. So we are using Python though, and I'm learning it because otherwise I cannot write the documentation.
Yeah, Python is really good.
Has it been easy for you or difficult for you, Michela?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you, Martin.
Has it been easy or difficult for you to learn Python?
No, when I was getting my doctorate, I was, instead of being a TA, they made me assistant to the network administrator. So I was installing and helping the professors with all the kinds of statistical software. So you become very flexible about languages. It's really not a big deal. And I think it's easy. Once you learn 2 or 3 languages, you understand the things in common, the things where they differ. So I would suggest probably people should take a look at learning both R and Python nowadays to get job opportunities. And in learning R, that's a great opportunity also to learn more econometrics, and econometrics is one of those sets of tools that you can use in a lot of places.
Thank you. Alex, you've just changed companies, a year ago. Did you have to change your programming language or learn?
So a little bit. My previous role, it was very R heavy. And that was exactly because, like Kelly said, like we were using more econometrics based models. Whereas now for machine learning, like neural nets, those kind of programs, it seems the industry is moving towards Python. And what I have to say, like I don't do any of those techniques really. At my current job, we've rolled over to Python. And I think also one thing to keep in mind about Python is that it's more like general purpose. And maybe other parts of the firm, which don't do any research, which are not quants, they might be using Python. And so it's maybe easier for them to deploy something. But I'm a big R fan. I think it's even more concise than Python is. So like Ivana said, okay, before she spent like a whole day writing like a function. And then in Python, it's already built in. So you can go even a step further and like use R, where it's even like more integrated. That being said, I also wanted to comment on the KDB SQL. I think SQL is really important for like writing applications. Like any like production application, it will connect to some database, maybe like store some settings there, something like that. So I think it's a really useful skill to have, but it's not great for storing financial data. In my current firm, we are using Q and KDB, which is great, but I wouldn't think like it's a requirement that we impose on our applicants. And also I know that like different firms have different proprietary data formats for tick data. And one other thing, I think it's quite important to catch up on web technologies. Being able to whip out some kind of maybe like a Shiny app or like a Python like web app to just display some data to have other team members or like maybe management play it with the data a little bit, like visualize maybe P&L, maybe just do like basic analytics and be able to actually show this to management or team members.
So as you're talking, I'm getting another question in here, which is almost the same, but it says, school is taught in different packages. This is from Hong Lee. And there are so many different ones: Stata, R, SAS, Python, C, and C++. Which one is most useful? I'm hearing you say, all of you, that you have to have a few of them, and some of them are better for data storage, and some of them are better for for analytics. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, and really, the list can get longer for the coding languages. This is I would say SAS, Python, CR, you know, they're the basics. Even SQL, they're the basics of, you know, of everything. So if you know, like SAS, for example, is widely used in financial institutions by some departments. Python is used by others. R is used, from at least from what I've seen, in a more scientific environment, more kind of R&D environment. C and C++ really teach everyone on coding practices, the fundamentals of memory allocation, messaging, just effective or efficient code writing. So I think they're really great. And then, you know, obviously, as an engineer, you may be asked to learn C#, you may be asked to learn Java, just to like sometimes bridge that gap between the layers in the architecture, or just interface with the architecture. It depends on how big the company is. You know, quants can do a lot of the quant work, but there's been instances where you kind of have to know how to plug in your code with the rest of the system. So I would say knowing a system end to end and knowing which coding languages apply in those layers of the architecture is really the best thing to do as a starter. And then on the quant layer, really knowing those like basic languages, and I would say all of them, is what's going to make everyone marketable in ahead of the competition.
Yeah, let me ask a slightly different question to get off the computer thing for the moment. Are there, when you were in school, were there subjects you wish you'd spent more time on, either because you chose not to or because they weren't available? And were there subjects you spent too much time on, you thought? Do any of you have any reflections on that, just to guide current students and what they might consider when they look at this? I'm not asking which are the best and the worst, but that's another way to possibly ask it. And I'm aside from computers, which we've just spent some time talking about, which would you like to have done more on and which less?
Well, I found that I got a lot of free rides from having studied a lot of linear algebra. You think linear algebra is complete waste of time, because who the heck, you know, cares about linear equations and whatnot? And instead, really learning linear algebra, getting some insight on, you know, properties of eigenvalues and stuff like that, then you find yourself a lot of work done when you are learning principal component analysis, when you want to make your code more efficient by vectorizing the code. So sometimes you think, oh my God, that was an epic waste of time. And I guess I'm reliving this because we have a middle school kid right now who is asking us a lot of things like, why in the world do I need to study this nonsense? But then you realize that it's actually helpful to know that nonsense. So be surprised, take interesting classes.
Z, you have any reflections on that?
No, I actually kind of agree here. So, you know, unless you know exactly where you're going to go into, it's really hard to, you know, pinpoint I need class ABC and I don't need to do DEF as, you know, at all. So, I mean, I personally took a lot of classes just out of my interest, like that has nothing to do with finance or engineering. And in a way, it's helpful in life as well, even if it doesn't apply to your job. But if purely from a more, you know, just making yourself marketable standpoint, I'm kind of drawing a blank of anything that's, that was insufficient or anything on just the program itself. But I mean, my advice is just to, I know the curriculum is important in the program, but also take some of your other electives, just personal interest. And the thing I found is if it's something you're interested in, it's not going to take you that much effort to learn and remember. So, and it's always a good balance as well.
Okay. You are all now in a position potentially of hiring new quants, and you're going to be interested in the qualifications they've got and which courses they took, perhaps. But what else are you looking for? What is the personal characteristic that you think is important for a new person coming into your companies right now?
They need to be tidy. If you get a sloppy resume, you are dead. If you have, if you don't have a space after every comma, if in a bullet list you have a full stop here and no full stop there, if your resume looks like you didn't really put a lot of thought into it, I'll assume that you're independently wealthy and you don't need to work for me. That's the first. It's really just being all together, being tidy, showing up dressed appropriately, having trimmed your nails and not looking like you are, whatever. It's just simple as that. Because if you look sloppy, I'll assume that you'll be sloppy also when writing code on my clock, and I don't want that.
Is there anything else? Are you looking for people to be curious, or that they can speak well, can communicate well, they ask you questions? Are those things important?
Morten, I agree. So I don't want to go back to the previous question, but being very technical. One thing that I wish I had spent more time is soft skills and interpersonal skills. Just because of how the coursework in engineering and computer science is purely, technology based, and there are some software engineering classes. So going back to that experience, my personal experience, and trying to hire individuals right now, I'm really looking for someone, as Michaela said, that's tidy, has a relevant resume with skills that I need, but at the same time, I'm looking for an individual that's a cultural fit within the existing organization, my microcosmos, if you will, and then the company overall. There are some behavioral questions that seem very trivial probably to many, but they're really revealing a lot about a candidate's personality. So my advice is to, definitely pay attention to interpersonal skills and cultural fit. And for companies that appreciate the culture that's created within them, it's a pretty big deal. And actually, 90% of the decision, if the skills are there, are being decided, 90% of the decisions are made based on that cultural fit, if there's candidates that kind of have matching skills. So that's a pretty important factor.
Okay. And I understand you are hiring at the moment. Is that correct?
I actually just filled all the positions in 2020. I was in a big hiring spree, but there is a lot of open positions at USAA. The career site is up to date. There are certain eligibility requirements for the positions. Because USA is a government contractor for some aspects of the job. So just be mindful of that. But their company is hiring talent, especially engineers and quants.
Okay. I want to thank everybody for attending today, and please follow up with myself or Matt or Amy if you have any, or Lauren Redmond has joined us. If you have any questions.
This has been a production of the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign Master of Science in Financial Engineering. Please visit our website at msfe.illinois.edu.